Welcome to the Trophy Dash podcast. Today, I get to interview the 2024 Little 500 champions, the Black Key Bulls. It's a great episode today. I get to spend the first half talking to the guys, the writers. That was McGuire Wolf, Jack Hanlos, Will Wagner, Wiley Close. We talk about uh, how they get to this year's race, what it took to get there, the training, the mindset, the teamwork, the alumni support, the whole thing, even breaking down the race. So that's the first part of the episode. Second part, I talked to the coaches, two of the main coaches for Blackie Bulls, Ryan Knapp, Jordan Bailey. I get to hear their story, how they got into Blackie Bulls, how they got into cycling, what keeps them around, and how this year's team was special. So sit back and enjoy. It's a good conversation. And it's always great to learn from the champions. Thank you.
The white flag is ready. Wagner around turn number 4. 1 lap to go. Will Wagner trying to finish this off for Blackie Bulls. They've won twice in 2014 and in 2017. Wagner around turn number 1. Cutters is currently riding second. Delt's third. Sigep is fourth. Wagner around turn 2 clean into the back stretch. They weren't even in the race last year. They failed to qualify. They are just 2 turns away from glory. Wagner around turn 3, it's clean. Thompson and Herbst are giving everything they have. Will Wagner's got some work to do around turn 4. The comeback is complete. Blackie Bulls wins the 2024 Little 500.
Will Wagner, the winner of Blackie Bulls, the hero. Will, talk me through that last lap. What were you thinking?
I was just like, damn, I'm not gonna mess this up. We worked so hard. Didn't qualify last year, didn't make it in the race. And redeemed ourselves this year. We got first and second in team pursuit. We knew we were deep. We came in with a plan and just executed perfectly. Man, this is crazy. I don't know what to say. I'm just trying to take all this in. All my friends, my family. This is just an awesome moment for us and the team.
Today on the podcast, I've got 2024 Little 500 champions, the Blackie Bulls. Thanks for being on, fellas.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been about 2 weeks or so since Little 5. And I'll start by congratulating you guys. It was an amazing race. But honestly, it's taken me that long to kind of relax and to not be so competitive, where I can actually get into a conversation about how you guys did it and not be kind of antsy that you guys kicked everyone's ass in Little 5. So I want to hear about where you guys came from, who you guys are, and how you got on the Blackie Bulls team. Let's go oldest to youngest, or most veteran on the team to the newest.
Yeah. I'll start, I guess.
All right.
We'll go into McGuire. But
This is
so
Jack.
yeah, I
Jack,
heard
Jack Hanlos. Yeah.
Jack Hanlos, senior, Indiana University. Major is hospitality event management and tourism and school public health. About to graduate in December. And I found the Blackie Bulls through a cross-country biking organization trip in Bloomington, Indiana, through Norm Hughes, who kind of administrated the entire trip, which many viewers of this podcast probably are familiar with Norm.
Yeah.
And he's a really cool guy. We went 3,000 miles across the country. I went on two trips with him. And then he's one of the sponsors of our team, and he introduced me to the Blackie Bulls, and he wouldn't take no for an answer until I joined the team. So I went on a ride with Robert Strobel, and then I just kind of year after year, I love biking more and more until this year I just totally locked in with it. So
Jack, when did you do the cycles trip? Were you in high school?
yeah, so I was 15 and 16 years old,
Hmm.
and that was 2016 and 2017.
When did you first become aware of Little 500, the bike race?
Um, Honestly, like I grew up in Bloomington, but it wasn't ever on my radar. Like I don't even think I knew about it
Uh-huh.
until I went to IU It just wasn't
Okay.
really it just wasn't really a big deal to me. I don't know. So I just like have no recollection of the race until I went to IU, and then it was a huge deal to me.
Your freshman year walking around campus lost and somehow
Yeah.
you stumbled into the Black Key Bulls. Like how did that happen?
Well, yeah, just through Norm, because he had been a supporter of the Black Key Bulls for as long as time,
Hmm.
and he just helped me get on the team, and he saw talent that I had when I was biking with him across the country, and he just wanted me to join the team. But yeah,
What
I had no idea really about Little Five, and then I realized how cool it was, like pretty much at the first race in 2021, and that was like just a fraction of what Little Five was this year because that was during Corona, pretty much.
Yeah. So you joined a team during the COVID thing?
Yeah, because I started IU
Oh,
2020 of fall,
yeah. Okay.
so in the height.
And then who are some of the guys on the team back then that kind of mentored you and taught you how to pedal and everything?
Yeah, so Robert Strobel, Logan Brown,
Hmm.
Daniel Kang, and then also Gavin Good. Um, those are kind of the four guys.
Yeah. Those are
Those because
great.
those guys had been around forever, and they kind of just like taught me what's up with biking, how to, not crash all the time, and how to like do some maintenance, and just what's right and what's wrong with biking, because there's a lot of like tiny little things that can, can
Hmm.
make you a good biker and a bad biker. So
Well, you had some good teachers there. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, McGuire Wolf.
Yeah, hi. I'm McGuire Wolf. I'm a fifth year. I'm from Pensacola, Florida, and I was previously on a different team when I started riding, like my sophomore year. Wasn't for me. Ended up leaving. Um, and then I was pretty dissolute with Little 500 at that point. But I still loved cycling, and I was like looking for people to ride with, and I was friends with Daniel King and Gavin Good, so
Hmm.
I reached out to them to hit some rides. Was going on some rides with them, having a good time, and they were like, "Hey, McGuire, like you could join like Blackie Bulls. Like you're a solid rider. You'd be a good person to have around." Jack Hamlis was also a part. Jack Hamlis and Will Wagner were also a big role in this. Yeah, influence, and I was like, okay, that sounds pretty nice to like I like these people. They're cool guys. I could definitely see myself like riding with them regularly. And then, as I joined the team, I was kind of like, man, I really love these guys. It's a different culture. It's just a better fit for me. I'm gonna give it my all and try for Little Five. And it just worked out from there.
What was it about the culture? Was it a competitive culture? Was it just a group of guys that took cycling serious?
I mean, they definitely took cycling serious and trained at a level I appreciated, but it was almost more off the bike. Like I just loved them as people, and I loved hanging out with them and being around them, and uh, just having a bunch of like-minded individuals that you want to be around all the time makes it a lot easier to commit to something like this.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. Will, let's hear your little
Yeah.
story. Will
My name is
Wagner.
Will Wagner. I'm a junior studying information systems, business analytics, and entrepreneurship. This is my third year on the team, so I joined as a freshman, probably like the first month or two since coming to school. Throughout high school, I played like hockey and lacrosse and never really appreciated cardio at all. I hated cardio throughout high school, and look where we are now. But man, my dad raced bikes, my mom ran marathons, so my dad wanted me to check out the Little Five, so I went to the call out meeting. And there I met Daniel Kang, and then from there I rode with like Logan Brown and Austin Goodwin. And then that same night they like invited me to hang out with the team and like another team. And then from there I just like was able to see the whole culture of the team and how everybody was so cool, and like I really looked up to them just because not only were they fast on the bike, but off the bike they were fun to hang out with and like cool people to be around. And I think that's what made me fall in love with BKB.
So you went to a general Little Five call out meeting
Yep.
because your parents told you to?
Yeah, my dad wanted me to check it out. And then somebody on my floor actually, her uncle was pretty involved with BKB. So she was like, go find someone from
Mm.
BKB to talk to. So I did.
Okay.
And I didn't know it was a competitive team. I think I definitely found that out on some of my first rides later on. And even like later throughout the year, I was like, okay, what did I get myself into? But I never looked back.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, we'll talk a little more here shortly. Okay. The freshman, the young kid, Wiley Close.
Okay, my name's Wiley Close. I'm a freshman studying exercise science, and I found BKB kind of a non-traditional route. I was the first second gen in BKB history, so my dad was a part of the team. He didn't ride, but he was a part of the team back when it was at Ball State, and so he knew about the team, and he knew that through Dave Shinaki that it had been reborn at IU, and there was a strong group of guys behind it. And so he was like, hey, like, I've got a lot of college buddies. They go down to watch this just because of the Black Key Bulls connections. And so they were like, he was like, you should come down and let's go watch the race. So I went in 2022, and I had just by chance watched quals that year. I was there for the Hoosier relays for indoor. So I like walked up there, I saw what was going on, and I was able to see Black Key Bulls qualify in 2022. Not the same case in 2023, but we figured it out. And then
So you were there too.
yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
I was
we'll
there.
get to that. Don't worry.
And then so from there, I just came to the race every year after, and then introduced myself in 2023 to some of the guys. And they were like, okay, yeah, just keep in touch and we'll reach back out to you in the fall. And so by the time I got here, I rode with Jack. He was the first guy on the team I rode with, and just realized that if this is my captain, like this team's going to be a perfect fit for me. So just stuck with it, and I'm glad I picked this group of guys.
What about Jack was appealing? His go lucky
I don't know.
attitude or his
Yeah,
quads?
I just like he had some spunk. He wasn't like a traditional captain where everybody's just so like, this is what we're gonna do. We're doing exactly this, and you're off the team if you're wrong. He was just more like he was more accepting for whatever you wanted to do, regardless of if you were good on the bike or not.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, three of you guys mentioned Daniel Kane, right? Which everyone who knows Daniel loves him. Right? He's great. He's welcoming. He's loving. But he sounded like he really influenced this team. He was also on the team that didn't qualify for the race, so I'm sure for him it's a mixed emotions. You know, being there for that moment. But I know he was back at the race this year, and so he got a little bit of closure for that. It was great seeing him there. So let's talk about how a team goes from not qualifying for Little Five with these really high expectations to winning the race in a year with a group of all rookie riders. Like, how does that happen?
Will, did you want to talk about not qualifying?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously not qualifying last year felt like an all-time low in the Little Five community for our team. And I think each of us had like a pretty big chip on our shoulder, us four specifically. I mean, I was on the quals team, so I think my reason for this year was to come back and win it all. But I know that like in previous years, Jack and McGuire haven't made race days, and I know that that inspired them a lot to push and train even harder for this year. And then Wiley coming in as a freshman and potentially being one of the fastest freshmen in BKB history was like a big reason for him. So I think just having all these different reasons for each of us really just allowed us as a team to train harder and push as hard as we can to come back this year. And I think that if we qualified last year and ended top 10 in the race, I honestly don't think we would have won this year. I think that like chip on our shoulder and ability to come back for not only the riders, but also the alumni was like a huge factor playing into our success this year.
Yeah, it's hard to underestimate the amount of hunger you guys had and drive. Like, is that a daily thing through the training? Is it always being talked about, or is it just something that's known and you guys don't talk about too much?
No, absolutely. We're talking about it all the time. We're always talking about like how much we want it. You know,
Mhm.
basically like I was on the sidelines during quals last year and it was super hard to watch. But basically from that day on, I was like, okay, counting down the days until race day. Because this is how many days I have to train as hard as I can to give it everything for race day. Because I'm a senior, I never raced. Like I have to prove it on this one day. So I had 13 months to just really give it everything, and it was totally worth it. So every one of us did everything that we could to make it happen. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, we definitely always encouraging each other to give everything that we got.
to add on to that a little bit, it was really a full overhaul in terms of like the way our team is organized from like a administrative perspective. We had a new coach this year with Jordan Bailey, who's incredible and previously been a race director and a coach for BKB. But even though we didn't qualify, we still had the largest turnout of alumni ever for the race last year until this year. Until this race, last year was the most alumni we've ever had at a race, and we weren't even racing. So we just got to spend a pretty incredible weekend just learning the why of BKB. And really, I think that's what cemented it for me to be like really lock in my head that like, okay, I want this. Like I want to do everything I can to not only race but like to win and really solidify this program.
Who organized that alumni show out last year? Like, how did that happen? Because it could have gone multiple directions, right? They could have all been upset with you guys and just said to help this team, or they could have doubled down on the love and compassion and showed up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I
Go
have
ahead.
all the details on that, but I think a lot of it was like Charlie Hammond, Jordan Bailey. Maybe you know better, Jack Hammonds.
Um, I'm hoping that they all just wanted to come individually. Like I don't know. But but I think there definitely was a push for it. I mean, somebody had to like order the Airbnb and like get that going. But they had to all organize their own transportation. But I think it was probably a combination of everything.
Yeah. Wiley, you mentioned some of the history of Black Key Bulls being a team that originated in Ball State, right? Can you guys talk a little bit about where the team started, how it started, and how it ended up in Bloomington?
So back at Ball State, there was an event called the Bikeathon, and it's essentially Lil Five, just around like a fairground track that doesn't exist anymore. But it was on old Schwinn bicycles, just like how they are here. But instead of like the normal slow down exchanges, they had like people that were called catchers, and they'd catch the bikes between their legs, and then the next person would take off. But the Black Key Bulls saw a lot of success there. Dave Shinaki, I think he won it twice with the Black Key Bulls. And I know that there's a lot of riders that are in Little Five now whose parents raced at Ball State. I know Paul Lee, his dad raced with Dave on the track for Bikeathon and off the track in collegiate road racing. But then the Bikeathon, the fraternity that put it on got kicked off campus, and so the Bikeathon was no more, and the teams just kind of all collapsed in on themselves because they had nothing to train for or race for. And then a couple of years later in 2007, Dave Shinaki was like, let's bring the Black Key Bulls back, and brought it up to the current race director, or not the race director at the time. And they were kind of like, you're crazy, dude. Nobody does this. Nobody builds a team from nothing. It's like at that time it was still mostly frats and cutters. That was pretty much the only independent team. And so Kim along with Toby Cole worked together to really to find 4 great guys, because they could only get 4 at the time, that wanted to ride for a team that didn't exist. And they got 4 guys, and that 4 guys ebbed to 5 to 6, and then so on and so forth. And then once they won in 2014, they put their name on the map, and it was like, okay, we can make this work. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, quite a good history. They were competitive from the get-go. I was there watching it all, you know. They were tough from the start. So going into this year's race, let's say in the fall, none of you guys ever rode Little Five before, right? You missed out on opportunities and whatever. Do you think of yourselves as rookies in Little Five, or have you ridden enough, been around the scene enough where you feel like you belong and no one's really pushing you around?
I think pretty much everyone on our team except the true rookies don't really feel like rookies, just because we've been here. Like, this is my 3rd year. Jack's been here 4 now. McGuire's been here, what, 3, 4? So yeah, like, we've all done thousands of laps on the track, done spring break on the track, rookie requirements in previous years, and like done all the events. And just coming into this year just didn't feel like anything new. It was just like the same old thing, doing the same 400-meter lap around the track.
Getting right into it. Yeah.
To key off that a little bit, the only thing, I wasn't worried about riding in the race and being like a rookie rider, and I don't think the other guys were. The only thing I was really trying to drill in for myself is like tunnel visioning during the race, because I know, like, I've had this experience in like other events like crits or something. The first time you do one, like, it's really easy to just like black out and not be like intentional about what you're doing. So in my mind, I was always trying to be like, know why you're doing something, focus on your surroundings, and like make decisions like with a reason, and don't just like let the race happen.
Yeah. I just mentioned you had some overhaul in many areas of the team, including coaches. How involved are your Little Five coaches through the year, talking about training, race preparation, strategy, and so forth?
I mean, they're heavily involved with strategy. Our coach this year, Jordan, had just sent us lots of race tape and specific moments of race tape to watch. He kind of drew up our strategy, which it was kind of just taken from the 2017 strategy a little bit, just kind of trying to go off the front. But yeah, I mean, our coaches are heavily involved in everything except picking the race day 4, because traditionally it's kind of just been up to the riders, and we want to keep that cohesive and just like not a source of like causing problems as like a coach picking favorites and such things. So we just like want to keep that among the riders. But yeah, our coaches are super involved, and a couple of the alumni.
Yeah, I was talking to Jordan probably almost weekly, and I think a lot of the other guys were as well.
I think I talk to him daily, just whether it's feedback on a workout or sprints that play into like end of race scenarios, whatever it was just something like supportive. And it was also nice, like, we have a giant chat with the alumni and hearing a bunch of their stories and things that they did and their experiences, and their feedback is just awesome as well.
How did training go for you guys through the year? Did you have any setbacks, any big injuries, or did it pretty much go as the coaches prescribed?
Personally, it went as the coach prescribed for me. I know there were a couple injuries, maybe after winter training trip for some of the guys, just a bit of overuse. But I think that the training was made perfectly. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I think it allowed our bodies just enough time to recover, but kept us under enough stress to keep getting better day by day, instead of having to like focus on a huge block and then maybe get injured, have to take like 2-3 weeks off, lose some of that fitness, and have to come back. It was pretty steady. Yeah. And it was we were in it for the long haul for sure. We started in August, and the only time workouts really changed up was once we made it to the track. So it was definitely a grind, but it worked out.
You guys
Yeah,
have it.
I mean, to add on to that, like coming into this year, I think most of the riders from last year as well, like coming into this year, didn't ride it all over the summer. I know a lot of us were injured over the summer and didn't get any miles in. So that was definitely like another motivation to train extra hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to circle back to our previous chat about the 300-mile ride, that did Jack and I no favors. We both got injured out of that, like
It was so
a
bad.
week or two later. And for me, I had that flare up again, like during the winter block when we're doing like indoor stuff and like you're not really able to like rinse your body and you're just kind of locked into one position. That definitely flared up my injury again. So I had to be pretty locked in with like going to physical therapy and like stretching and rolling like daily. So yeah.
You guys have a training house, a place where the whole team gathers and does workouts together, or you kind of scattered?
Yeah, so during the winter, we all come over to my place. I got like a big garage, so everybody just drives over, and then
Mm-hmm.
we grind for 4.5 hours on Saturdays. So, and then Sunday too.
Jack, those will be the special moments you remember much longer and better in your mind than even winning the race. As
Yeah,
just FYI, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you remember those moments in the garage
yeah,
more than anything. Yeah.
yeah. They've been special every year. So no matter how terrible they were in the moment, which they were bad, but
That's why they call it
I look
training.
back at them fondly. Yeah.
So let's get into the spring. Like qualifications comes around. You guys end up qualifying third. Uh, there's got to be some pressure there, right? Uh, like how'd you guys handle that day as a group, individually, and how much relief was there after you qualified?
I mean, I know just not qualifying last year into this year, it was a lot of pressure for our whole team. And I think that morning it was pretty difficult for me to eat breakfast. Definitely felt like that was going to be a big day. And then when we, like the whole spring, I think we placed a lot bigger of an emphasis on our exchanges than previous years. And we weren't trying to go for the fastest quals run, but we wanted like the cleanest. And I think we were able to pull that off. So as soon as that happened, it was just like a giant weight lifted off our shoulders and we made it in the race in front row. So
I mean, looking back at quals, we may have celebrated even more crazily than after the race. I mean, we were jumping up and down. Like it was probably on par with how crazy we went out, like just right after the race. We were ecstatic to make it into the race for sure. And especially with how smooth we did it. We didn't we didn't get pole, but we did it safely and smoothly. And I know that was going through a lot of the guys' heads before we were walking out there. We were like, hey, it's just another day of practicing exchanges. Do the exact same thing you've done 100 times up to this point. Just don't think of it as anything more than just practice. And I think that really helped calm everybody down, just keep us like focused. There's nothing more to think about except doing an exchange and riding the bike. You don't have to think about the result until it's over.
Right. Qualifying third, you get to choose your pit selection. You guys chose the third pit from the end of the front straightaway in turn one. What's your strategy there, getting close to SIGEP and SAE deep in that turn?
I mean, I talked through it with Jordan Bailey and we thought it was best to be there, to be able to like time our exchanges off of them and catch any burns that they have. Just because I think they were the two teams that were faster than us throughout quals and spring series. So we thought that would just be like, they'd have a target on their back from us.
Yeah. And to go on to spring series events, ITTs comes up shortly after quals. You guys placed 4 in the top 25, which is pretty good, really. How are you feeling after ITTs collectively as a group?
I mean, awesome. ITT is only 4 laps really fast. So it's not like the whole race, but I mean, for the strategy that we were trying to go for, I mean, it was a pretty good indicator. But I mean, there were other teams like SAE did really good and IGTs, and so did SIGEP, but we felt super solid, and we knew that we had some really good guys that can put a lot of power down on race day. So, do you guys have anything to add?
Jack, you talked about for the strategy you were going for, that was helpful. When did the strategy of attacking like start to blossom? Like when did that conversation come up?
I think from the gun. I think we were talking like the second we started talking about race day strategy, it was in the works to plan on trying something.
And that was over winter training trip. That wasn't even with our coach. That was with Robert Strobel. He was like, "You guys have the legs to do it, so you might as well do it." He said, "You happen to the race. Don't let the race happen to you." I think that really stuck in all of our heads.
And our coach said the exact same thing the second he started cooking up race day strategy. It was like 150 to like 175, somewhere around there. Like we believed we had the legs to at least attempt something if the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, as a competing team, it was clear to us you guys had the legs as well. We just couldn't do anything about it when it happened.
Sorry, I'm back. My Wi-Fi went out.
It's all right, Jack. We were asking about when did the strategy of attacking first start? When the conversation about first start, and over winter training trip, it sounds like you guys were talking about we have to attack and get off the front.
Yeah,
even though you've got Will Wagner, who was one of the fastest guys on the track, and certainly capable of winning a field sprint.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a card that we had to keep in our back pocket just in case it went down to that situation. So, with Little 5, it's an ever-changing race and you don't know what's going to happen. We could have got involved in a crash and then we would have had to catch back up to the pack, and we wouldn't have enough good legs to, go off the front. So, having somebody like Will that can do a 30-second lap is really huge. So I think we had multiple options, but I think something like what we did was the best for our type of training and fitness.
Well, let's get into the race. It's not very often you put a rookie out there to start the race, at least. Wiley, how did you come about starting your first Little 5 for the Blackie Bulls?
I think in the first conversation, it was Jordan was like, "You do a good job on keeping it rubber side down, and we just need you to keep you upright for the first 15 laps or so." And even though I am the youngest rider on the team and I've never done Little 5, I still have about as many years of riding a bike as all the other guys do. And so, like, riding wise and racing wise, my mind's just where all of theirs is at as well. And so I think it was the safe bet too. Also not putting, because I'm not the punchiest rider, so letting me tire out myself a little bit earlier than the guys that might need to chase down moves and all of that. It just worked out well. And yeah, I think I'm able to stay pretty level-headed in most situations. So also just being out there and being completely calm, not needing to freak out or anything.
Yeah,
I think that helps a lot too.
What was it like emotionally? You're in the front row doing the warm-up laps, like your first Little 5, and then they throw the green flag to start it. Are you just clicking right into race mode, or do you take a second to take it in?
When we were riding around the track, me, Luke Noss, and Will Pitts, we were kind of talking to each other. We knew what we were going to do. We knew how we were going to file into a line. So that was out of the question. There was no variable there that we had to figure out right when the race started. And we were kind of just like, hey, let's enjoy this, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, who knows? Maybe you never come back out on that track again. So you might as well look around, enjoy the views for once before everything goes crazy. And I think we all did that. And then the moment we crossed the line, it's like, okay, you guys are my enemies now. I'm going to do everything in my power to beat you. So yeah.
To go back a little bit, going into the race, as you're thinking about your competition and your enemies there, like who are you guys keying off of? Who are you watching? Like, what got your attention prior to the race?
I mean,
I'd say-
obviously, I think Spring Series and quals were the two biggest indicators. Obviously, Judah probably the fastest and smartest racer in the field. So Cutters was a big target, and we wanted to keep an eye out for you guys, as well as SIGAP being probably like the four or the top team throughout Spring Series and quals, and then SAE, Delta, obviously, and then like in the back pocket, like Chi Alpha thought they could be there, and they were, and then like maybe even Beta Sig or some other teams too.
Yeah. But for the first part of the race, you're just riding your race, or are you guys doing exchanges off of other teams? How's it shaking out for let's say the first 40 laps until it all goes south?
I know for at least when I was out there, it was like you come in when you want to exchange, like just get a good enough burn and don't be the first team to come in. Like that was a big thing. It was like never be the first person to exchange ever.
Yeah.
Because you know what's going to happen. So it was also like change up where you're coming out of, like change up where you're going to burn from. So then people don't know when to respond. So I just went for coming off the start for my first burn. I went at the start finish line. So
did a whole lap. Yeah.
Yeah. And not really, I don't think anybody was really expecting somebody to go from the start finish line. SAE went at the same time as us and exchanged right after us. But yeah.
I just want to point out, despite what Wiley said, he was the first to exchange that first set.
Was I?
Yeah, you were the first in the like top 10
okay,
teams.
No, first out of the top teams. I wasn't the first person on the track to exchange.
No, but like, come on.
Okay, well, overall.
But
it was a good set, bro.
Yeah,
it
you
was
got
a great
the
set.
burn
It was
made
a
up for it.
great set, but
if you got a
Yeah.
gap, it's fine. Yeah. Then shortly, SAE attacks. Right? Did you guys see that coming? Everyone probably had a sense that's what they wanted to do, but you guys were down every day in practice next to them. You could probably hear them talking, watch them do laps. Like, was it a surprise? And did you know it was going to happen when it did?
I mean, I don't think anyone, like any one of like the top teams thought that was a surprise. It seems like that's a pretty similar game plan that SAE seems to go for year after year. Or at least some frat. I know SIGAP did it last year, but they went at like lap 20 so early on. That I think was the surprising part, how long they were able to just draw that out. But
what's the pit? How you guys reacting during that? Because they were out there for over 100 laps, and they had well over a half a lap for quite a while.
yeah, I mean, we were definitely like, we went into the race like willing to work. Like we wanted to work. We knew we were going to work. We didn't want to just like do all the work, but like we did want to contribute and like control the race to an extent. I didn't expect them to stay out there as long as they did. Like I expected like 40 or 50 laps, and if nothing really improved, they would probably like try and fall back and regroup. But yeah, I believe though it was around like 100, 110 after like us just doing quite a few sets of like kind of damage control. And they definitely like they got up to like 3/4 of a lap at one point, which is like very scary. So
That
at
got
that point,
terrifying. Yeah.
yeah, that was very scary. And that was like, okay, we got to do like a lot of work. But then by like 100, 110, even though I was probably still like freaking out a little bit, our coach was like, it's going to come back. We're going to do the work to bring it back, but it's going to come back. Do not worry about that. It's going to come back. And that's when we're going to like look for our opportunity.
Who's on the fence, timing laps and talking to you guys about that?
Charlie Hammond was running laps right behind me. He was keeping track of how long people were out there. I know Norm was keeping track of like actual time splits, but I think just the number of laps out there is more in the rider's head than how fast they're actually going, because they have no clue. So just like, okay, I can do 6 laps. Well, Charlie will keep track of it for you, and then he'll let Jordan know how long you've been out there for, and then Jordan will tell you when or not to come in. So
Yeah.
We also had Ryan Knapp, our former coach, standing on the fence with Charlie, doing some analysis and like doing some co-coaching with Jordan.
Mhm. So SAE's out there for quite a while, and they eventually come back. What lap is that? 140 something,
I
maybe?
think 145-ish.
45. Okay. Um, there's a bit of reprieve. Everyone takes a deep breath. Okay, the race is back together. Are you guys just getting excited now? Like, you're just getting ready for your attack? What's the conversation in the pit there? How do you set it up?
I think it's just looking for an opportunity. You know, you kind of just got to roll with the punches, and then you just have to see where everybody else is, see how gassed the rest of the field is, see how exhausted everybody is. And then right when you think they're tired enough, you just go. So it's just waiting for the right time.
I remember the moment pretty vividly. It was around like 165. I'm on the trainer listening to like Charlie and Knapp and Jordan like sort of talking back and forth. And Will is out there when it's really hard. There's a flurry of exchanges. He gets a monster gap off his burn, and Ryan sees that, and he goes, "Okay, it's now. Like, okay, we do it. Like Jordan, tell him a +1." And Will +1. That gets us the initial gap. SAE are the only people that bridge.
Mhm.
And from there, it's kind of just like a dogfight until we shake them off and then just fully like put our heads down to just try and bring it home.
once you send it, there's no looking back. You can't have any doubt in your mind. Like, shoot, because once you do that move, you've shown your cards. There's no hiding what you're planning to do to the field at that point. And the moment you look back, it's showing that weakness. And I think we maybe in that entire time, I think we only looked back once, and it was just to see how close SAE was, so we could time them getting back on our wheel and making them pull through.
Were you surprised the gap grew so quickly?
I was. It's like we got a half lap in like no time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty amazing.
I think SAE did a lot of work for us in a way. They made everybody else have to work just as hard as us. And along with a lot of other teams in the field, we're pretty deep. And so we had a pretty even distribution of work in between everybody. So we were still decently fresh. I know some of us had some killer sets in there that made you want to quit the race, but I think we were still feeling pretty good by the time that counterattack needed to happen.
Yeah, you had such a big gap. It's hard for a team to think they can bring it back, because one rider can't really bring back half a lap at race pace. So you need cooperation, and then no one wants to do that because then you want to do all the work. So you guys were in the perfect scenario there. Talk about the attack where you're doing all out laps at as fast as you can. What's the order there? I think McGuire, you're after Will, I think.
Yeah, and I was supposed to do like 4 to 5 laps. I honestly, that was like my third set, and it's my first time just like having open air on the track. And that was definitely like the scariest set for me. And I definitely like went out a little too hard. I only ended up doing 3 laps, even though my coach was sitting there like giving me the signal for like 2 more. And I'm just giving the signal like, I'm coming out. If you don't get me off the bike, we're gonna lose like this race. Like I know I need to get off the bike. So yeah, and then I believe I gave it to Wiley or Jack or someone, but then we just kept rotating.
Well, what's it feel like for you guys to be in open air there? Just basically time trialing, doing a series of ITTs.
I
And
think
you obviously want to do as many laps as you can, right? Because you want to eliminate exchanges.
Yeah. I think it would really just align with our training. So it kind of felt like we were just doing another day at the track, um, as hard as you can for like 5, 6 laps, like 3 or 4 minutes, and just going all out, head up, being safe, trying to get a draft wherever you can, and really just trying to bring it home. I know for me, I was thinking like on my last set, those 4 laps, I was like, okay, just ITT pace it. And I know that I've done pretty poor jobs at ITT pacing in the past. So I made sure that my first 2 laps were definitely like something that I could sustain, and I was able to like even increase the pace for the last ones. But it just felt like everything we've done this whole year, it was no different.
Uh, you had a bit of a mechanical, right? You had a seat post binder break, like second to last set or something. Wiley's
Yeah.
out there riding a kid's bike. His knees are hitting his chest. Uh, that's scary. Like the race is almost gone from you right there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know I was
Tell me
sitting on
about
the
that.
trainer. I was sitting on the trainer and Gavin, our mechanic's on the infield, and he's like, this bike is broken. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, nice. That's fun. But then Wiley was like, I can do it. And there's just like a great angle of him doing that. So
What do you mean the bike was broken? Before Wiley got on it, you
Yeah,
knew
we
that.
knew. We knew. He was like, I can't tighten this seat down. And so I wasn't supposed to go back out on the bike, but like everybody was freaking out, and I'm not the tallest. So it was pretty much between me or Jack or McGuire. And McGuire had just come off. So it was like, okay, well, or no, McGuire was out there. And so it had to have been somebody that was a little bit shorter. So I was like, okay, I can do 2 laps on a saddle that's all the way down. So I might as well give it a shot, because if somebody doesn't go out there, we're going to lose this race. So
Because
then
who was supposed to go? Will?
it was
Jack was
supposed to
supposed to
be,
go.
I think
yeah,
it was supposed to be me. I think
Yeah.
It was supposed
that
to be
was
Jeff,
supposed to get on the bike.
he was hit by Sigap in the exchange zone a little bit earlier, and that definitely like had an impact. I think he was
Will-
out cold
Will-
for like
Kind
Jesus.
kind of. My legs were just destroyed though. I don't know. I think I was just like I was mentally so foggy, like because Wiley like got on the seat and he like gently got on the seat. I know I would have just thrown my butt onto the seat and probably fallen over. Like you can see the exchange on the film. Like Wiley did it so carefully, and I don't think that I would have done it like that because I don't think I had the mental capacity to like even think about that.
Yeah, the
So
set
I would have just
before,
gone. So I'm super thankful Wiley did that.
I didn't even know that all happened till after the race because I was the set before, and right then it was like I don't know. It's lap 190 when I'm going out, and there's only like 10 laps left in the race, which is a pretty terrifying thing. And our coach was like, "Okay, I need 4 more laps from someone." And Jack was like, I don't know if I got it." And I was thinking to myself, like, it's gonna be the last 4 laps of my career. I need to make up for this third set I did. I'm gonna go out there and like hammer the best 4 laps I ever had, which that was definitely the set I'm the most proud of. And then I come in, there's all this chaos like in our pit. I'm like, what's happening? And on the video, there's this awesome shot of Wiley, one stepping up and being like, I got this. Like, I'm gonna ride this broken bike and get 2 laps in so that Will can finish it off. But also, there's this shot of him coming around like turn 3 or 4, where you can just see as he's pedaling the seat drops like a foot, and he's just riding the top 2. And it's so funny, but also terrifying because we lost a lot of time because of that.
I
Then
still did 38. Let the record show I still did 38. I'll take that.
I think it was a 37.
Oh, 37, I
better,
guess.
yeah. And Will, were you planning to go last? I'm sure that was the strategy the whole time.
I mean, if it was a sprint, it definitely would have probably been me on the bike. I think that was our first option. But if it was like a breakaway, like it was, I think we were just gonna go like the
Well,
normal.
Whoever's next.
Yeah, who's ever
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
But yeah, then Wiley did that set, and there was 4 laps that had to be done. Everyone wasn't as fresh as I was, so I was ready to be there and take those last 4.
What were those last 4 laps like for you? You have a monster lead. All you have to do is pedal hard and stay up.
Yeah, those were probably like the 4 most surreal laps I've ever ridden on that track. Um, I don't know. Like I said earlier, I was like trying to pace it off my ITTs, but I know that I've always started out pretty hot in ITTs and faded, and I didn't want that to happen this time. So like that was running through my mind, number one, and then number two, it was like, don't mess up. But instead of like trying to phrase it as don't mess up in my head, I was trying to think like I'm gonna do it and like think about it in a positive light instead of like not negative. Um, so I tried to just keep my head up, pedal through the turns as safely as possible. But I know going into the white flag and then the checkered flag, both laps, I was looking straight up at Chappie, waving the flags with all the fans, just taking it all in. And that was a really cool experience.
Did your legs even get tired? You probably didn't even.
No, I think for me, the hardest lap for my legs was after crossing the line and finishing up that lap. I was starting to get a lot of cramps.
Mhm.
I don't know. I've never had like cramps like that on the bike before, but it was like everything had been done and there they were. So that was pretty funny to me.
Then you take that cramping lap and you make it back to the pit where your teammates are waiting for you. What's that feeling for all you guys? You just won a little 500 in your first race, and all the alumni are there, and Jordan's saying redemption and all this stuff.
I think that was really cool. One thing that stuck out to me after lap 200 while I was going around the track, like other teams were coming up to me like as I finished, like congratulating me, and I know like people were like, "Oh my gosh, Will Wagner!" Like that was really cool to me. They were all like proud and wanted us to do it. I know like even throughout our last sets, people were cheering for us from other teams on the bike, which just shows how like awesome the Little Five community is and how genuine the people are. But I mean, I'll let them talk about the coming in on lap 200.
I think Jack should cover this one. I think he's the resident expert for this.
I mean, it was everything. You can catch me at the end of it, like crying, saying it's everything. It's so terrible. But I mean, it was just more than I could imagine. Like I really felt it 198 when Will was crossing our pit. I was just like, "Oh my gosh. I think we can do this." And then Wiley was like holding me back, like put my arm on, he like put his arm on me and he was like, "We're not there yet." And I was like, "Wiley, we're here." We've done it.
Not stepping out of the pit.
Yeah. No, I know. I couldn't contain myself, but it was surreal. Just having all the alumni and Daniel behind us didn't qualify. He was so supportive and just everybody there. Toby Cole, our sponsor, I was so happy to be able to give him a win. Like he had been supporting us for so long and he has like poured into everybody so much. It just feels good to make everybody proud and make my parents proud. So there hasn't been a better feeling.
I know for me, it was like just the stress, the pressure, I mean, like all that anxiety of racing Little Five and like being competitive and making an attacking move at the end and being in the lead is like a profound privilege. But watching Will cross that line, just the flush come down of emotions, like just knowing we did it, knowing it's over, just like 3 years of like ups and downs, just like out the door, we won, was just like I've never felt anything like that. And then after that settled in, I could start to be happy about it. But like I had never felt such an intense wave of relief.
Why did you guys win? What was special about this group that uh, the race allowed you guys to win? Why did the race pick you guys this year?
I think it's because we came in with every fiber of our being saying, we're going to win this race. We have no other choice. We're coming into this to win this race. We believed it from the moment we started training. There was no other option coming into that race. We, like, every single training ride, it was always any choice we made in between August and April, it was always thinking about the race. How's the race going to go? Like, will this help me win on race day? And if not, probably not going to do it. So.
And we just supported each other. Like, I've been on 4 different teams, and this is the best one, you know? Like, I've never felt the support that we've given each other. And just, there was no conflict, there was no drama, there was nothing to worry about except biking and friendship and chemistry. And it's a very special team. And you can call it intangible, but I don't know. We've worked so hard for us to get along so well together. And I don't know. It was just about time. We've worked a long time.
You didn't say anything about power numbers or lap times or how fast you could pedal or how many miles you rode.
Yeah, we do that behind the scenes. Yeah,
but it's more about the camaraderie and the bonds you guys built together and support you have for each other.
I just 100%. I think for me personally, it's so easy to be motivated to go out there and do these workouts with these guys or alone when, like, every single thing we did from the start of the year, whether it's like partying together or Halloween or winter training trip or quals or fall series, spring series, every single thing we've done this year was my favorite time I've done it in my Little 5 career. And it's been my favorite people to do it with. And I think it just builds on itself so strongly. And it's so easy. It makes it so much easier to go out there and kill yourself on the bike when you have a group like this that you like love so much.
Yeah, I totally agree. When there's like a team of guys behind you that you're working for instead of just for yourself, I think that's probably the biggest deciding factor for a Little 5 team.
No way I would have showed up to Jack's garage again if I didn't like you guys. No way. Those were some of the worst days of my life.
It's okay. You only have 3 more years.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, right. They're only going to get worse.
Speaking of that, you 2 seniors, like, what advice do you have for the returning riders and the incoming Blackie Bulls you haven't even met yet that'll join the team?
Yeah. Keep working, keep improving, keep wanting to, learn and be better. It's an ever, life is just ever changing and ever evolving. You just gotta always want it. You always gotta want to be better. And as long as you have that hunger, like as we were talking about in the beginning, you're going to be better than other people.
Definitely similar to what Jack said. You don't have to be the strongest rider coming into Little 5. I definitely wasn't. But you do have to have a pretty strong personal drive and want for this, and not even necessarily want to just like train bikes, but to be a part of the team and do what the team's doing. And every little thing that you like contribute to the team and to yourself really adds up, and being really intentional about always improving and always learning and not just getting complicit. And I mean, enjoy it. Find the people you belong with. I was on a team with people I didn't belong with, and it was a completely different experience. So yeah, that's what it's more about, finding the right people for yourself, I'd say. Explore your options, and if you're a BKB, you'll know and you'll commit to it and you'll love it.
That's great. you two returning riders, racing in the yellow jersey is a little different, right? So it's a different kind of pressure than you had this year. Where does the hunger come from now after you've won the race, after you've done it? You check that box off. How do you come back and repeat?
I think a big thing for us, especially me and Wiley, is just starting back at square one. Got a whole nother race to train for. Nothing matters. Nobody cares that we won last year. It's all about who's going to win the next year. So I think being able to motivate off that and really just do the same things that we did this year and not get too overconfident and just remember that the race is won in this forthcoming year, not the last year.
Who told you to say that? Because that's the only answer that actually mattered.
I think I definitely have even more drive to want to win the race. Like I had a lot of drive, but now that I've done it once as a freshman and I've seen what it's like and felt what it's like, not a lot of people get to be on the race day squad when they're a freshman. And I just want to continue to build on that and create like a Black Key Bowl legacy. I just want to submit this team into history for sure.
Mm-hmm. How do you get better, Wiley? What's your summer look like?
Staying down here as a freshman, so that's a little bit out of the ordinary, but just a lot of racing, a lot of riding the bike. Usually it's as simple as that. You just got to ride your bike.
Mm-hmm.
Wiley's going to be bulking.
Yeah, I will be gaining a bit of weight. Hope, fingers crossed, if all things go according to plan. But
And Will, you'll be a senior next year.
Yep.
Last little five. I suppose you could do a fifth year since you missed last year.
Hopefully don't need to, but yeah, the past 3 years already flew by, so I'm not looking forward for it to be over. It's quite like nothing else. It's a pretty unique experience.
Are you spending your summer in Chicago area?
No, I'll be in Dallas for an internship, so hopefully I'll be able to ride when it's not over 100 degrees. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get out to some races, do some training. And I know last summer it was hard just because my wrist, like I tore something in my wrist and wasn't able to bike. But I mean, I think I'm a lot more motivated and ready to win again. So
back to the graduating guys. You're alumni now, Black Key Bowl alumni. What does that mean? And yeah, so tell me what that means first.
It means I gotta unfortunately start the next chapter of my life and not focus on the little 5 100% anymore. But yeah, I mean, just with BKB, I mean, I'm gonna be supporting these guys as much as I can. I'm still gonna be in Bloomington because I graduate in December. I'm gonna train some of the other guys or like bike with them. You know, Wiley and a couple of our other rookies are gonna be here. So I'm gonna try to bike with them as much as I can. And just kind of encourage them and yeah, I don't know, give what I can, give quality time and not money. So yeah.
For me, I don't know, it's exciting. It's been kind of difficult for me to find I guess like a super solid group of guys that I want to commit to and like who I call my best friends and such. And to know that I will always have this this family of BKB to like visit and lean on and cheer for forever is it's exciting. I mean, the feeling of winning only lasts so long. So to have the longevity of and I guess it's nice to know that I have these group of guys with me for the rest of my life. And I'm excited to cheer for them and support them however I can without being like too annoying of an alumni.
I'm gonna be a really annoying alumni.
Is there anything else anything else through the year that was magical or a special moment that defined the year for you that developed your identity?
I think placing first and second in team pursuit was a pretty defining moment.
Tell me about that.
That
Yeah.
definitely boosted our confidence a little bit and didn't make us overconfident, but definitely made us a lot more confident in ourselves going into the race, realizing that we have 8 guys that could potentially be on race day and do just as well as anybody else. I think that that's something special that we had that not many teams did.
Yeah, out of the 4 of us, the only one being on the second BKB2 team, that was probably the best day ever I've ever had on the bike. So that was pretty awesome. And I want to put it on the record. If we had the Aero socks and Aero gloves, we would have beat BKB #1 team.
Yeah, I can see where that was a special moment, and to definitely send a message to all the little 5 teams that you kind of pick up their game and organizationally, and tactically. All right, well, I'm proud of you guys for all you went through, not qualifying, sticking with it, coming back even stronger, uh, developing strong friendships, being great ambassadors for Little 5, and just being good guys overall. It's been a joy to meet you seniors, and I'll definitely be cheering for you younger guys still. It's fun as a coach to compete against your team. It raises the bar of Little 5. You know, I get greedy. I would like to win every race, but I know it's not possible. And thankfully it's not, because it's worth more when you have to work so hard for it. And what a cool bike race it is. And it's great to see the bike race as healthy as it is, and so many teams trying to compete for the win. So I just want to tell you guys, I appreciate you, and I've noticed what you've done, and it doesn't go without me noticing.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you
so much.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure.
And let's stay friends, and enjoy your summer. And
You as well.
we'll see you guys back next year.
See you next
See you.
fall.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Now we have Riley Woodall in the pits.
Hey guys, here we are with the winners BKB coach. Guys, you didn't even qualify for the race last year. You win it here in 2024. What does this moment feel like?
Oh my God, it feels like everything.
Redemption. These guys worked their ass off all year. They changed the culture of the program. They set the goal out to win. This is BKB's 3rd win.
The young freshman, Wiley Close, did a lot for you guys this race. How proud of
All
him.
4 of them rode a hell of a race. Hell of a race.
Speak on the character of this group of guys you got with you.
Again, none of these guys have been on the race. They've been involved with Little 500 for a number of years. This was their first race day, and they killed it. They killed it absolutely.
All right. Well, this is part 2 of the Black Key Bulls Championship podcast, and today I'm interviewing the coaches, Ryan Knapp and Jordan Bailey. Thanks for being on, fellas.
Happy to be here. Of course, happy to be here.
We are about 2.5 weeks post Little 5. So things are a little calmer for me, like less antsy about not winning, and more able to kind of get into headspace of what the Black Key Bulls did this year and celebrate that. So it's nice to have some time to pass and a little more clarity is on my side. and maybe there's a little more clarity for you guys as well, because it's right afterwards, you're like, what the heck just happened? And sometimes it takes time to kind of unfold.
Yeah, I don't know. JB, have you rewatched it in its entirety?
Yeah, I have. And to Jim's point, it was, going back to work on Monday was a very tough deal where, we all shared with the colleagues of, oh, what did you do over the weekend? Oh, I went down to Boone and for the Little 500. Oh, well, that's neat. Yeah, it was really cool because, helped coach the BKBs to win the race. Oh, cool. And then that was that. And then, back to reality and outside of the awesomeness that is the Little 500 universe. So.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't do a like an Ironman, it doesn't really resonate with any like if that's not what you did with your weekend, people are not going to be like, "Oh, that's awesome." They don't they don't care.
Maybe if you'd ran Boston Marathon, which is
Yeah.
the week before, the Monday before.
Yeah.
Well, Black Key Bulls, I would like to hear from you guys a little bit how the team got to IU, how you guys got interested in bikes, and how you guys ultimately ended up on the Black Key Bulls yourself.
Like JB, I feel like you're a good historian. You're probably best to outline it despite me being on the initial team. I feel like you've got the story straight.
So, oddly enough, like obviously Little 500 has the staying power of 74 years. But in the like Indiana college and university landscape in the 60s and 70s and 80s, a lot of other schools like DePauw and Evansville and Ball State all had their versions of Little 500. So BKB was originally born at Ball State in their equivalent of Little 500 with their bikeathon event, which more or less ran from I think the 70s through the 90s. And so with Black Eagles specifically, as the story goes, there were two brothers, and one was part of the Blue Key Honorary Society, and the other, he and his friends, like as renegades and as a joke, formed the Black Key Dishonorary Society and would enter that team in like all the Ball State intramurals, in the bikeathon and stuff. And then they basically like ripped the logo off the Schlitz malt liquor. So the bull off of that logo, thus Black Key Bulls was born. The way I got to IU, Dave Trinacki raced for BKB at Ball State in the 90s. His brother was an IU grad. He raced Little 500 for Teeter. And so when he was racing for Teeter, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, Dave was coach of that team. And so after his brother graduated, there were some like remaining guys on that team that had like rushed one of the fraternities, maybe like I can't remember who, but Sigma Chi, let's say. And of course, like, they got into frat life and weren't taking the bike races seriously. And so Dave said he went to Rob Ramey, who was the race director at the Student Foundation at the time, and said, "Hey, I want to like make an independent team with the goal of winning the race." And Rob Ramey basically like laughed him out of the office and said, that's like a pretty big impossibility. You're just better off like getting hooked up with an established team and like helping that way. And so that I'll let Ryan like take over the next part of the story, because he was instrumental in like the formation of a trio of Columbus riders and Isaac.
Yeah, so from there it was kind of CT Blackwell was a guy that I knew from high school who was one of the initial members of the team, and he knew Dave and was recruited by Dave for this upstart team. And our Isaac Neff, who obviously Jim pretty well. And then we had a few other Columbus guys in those early years, and Andy Roberts is another Columbus guy who was on the team the second year of its existence. But basically just kind of me, CT, and Isaac, and then we had a couple other guys those first 2 years come through that kind of formed that initial team. But yeah, it was just, I always kind of laugh about this, seeing where BKB is as a program now, because, if you had asked me then if we would be around in like 20 years or whatever, 15 years, it's like, I probably wouldn't have cared, because, I didn't have any, there was no prestige tied to it. I didn't fully understand the gravity of Little Five, and just kind of like, I think it gets more important, or you see more value in it the further you are removed from your riding years. And so for us, Isaac and I were definitely into other forms of bike racing and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of another event. And it was cool, because it's always fun to do stuff in front of people like that and have people in the stands. Whereas most bike races, it's like your mom and your girlfriend and like, somebody else's mom and their girlfriend watching. And so it definitely has that going for us. But yeah, it just wasn't that big of a deal to us at that point, and we didn't really have any vision for where it might go as a program. But yeah, it's kind of cool to look back and be in
Yeah.
at the ground floor of something that's turned into, this big group of active alumni, and has produced a lot of good bike riders, and it's grown into something way bigger than I think any of us could have imagined back when the team first kicked off.
Sure. What year was that, Ryan? That first year? Refresh my memory. Like
Uh,
07?
2006 was the first year we fielded a team, and we went to a third attempt qualifying. I broke my collarbone on a botched attempt, a botched second attempt, and we qualified with two people on a third attempt. And I think they qualified 17th, CT and Isaac, which is pretty good for a third attempt. We probably
Yeah.
should have been a bit smarter and maybe chilled out. But yeah, we just got in on a third attempt, and then we were, a little more relevant the following year in 2007.
Did you race in 06?
Yeah, I broke my collarbone 4 weeks
Mm-hmm.
to the day before the race, and I've had four collarbones, and they seem to grow back pretty quickly for me at least. And so I just kind of always had the idea that, well, I'm going to ride, in the race when it comes around in 4 weeks, and I'll just try not to fall down. And so, yeah, that was my first year and the first year for the team. And that was,
And were you guys hooked immediately?
yeah, I think
Or
it definitely upped our investment, I think, in it, because it seemed cool, and we were, we actually felt like we were participating. We weren't really, we didn't, that was the year that Hans lapped the field. So
Mhm.
everybody was a lap down, but we were in that next group of riders or teams racing for second, I believe. And so, yeah, we felt like we were participating and got enough of a taste of it that we were like, okay, let's try to do this a little better next year.
And you guys got better. You got better. You got better. Uh, Ryan, after you graduated from Little Five from Bloomington, you stayed around the area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've lived here ever since. I played golf for a couple years in college out of state and then moved back. I had ridden and raced some mountain bikes like pre-high school and maybe when I was a freshman in high school. And that's why I got, it was any port in a storm situation with BKB. They're like, CT knew me from high school. It's like, I think that kid has ridden a bike a little. Like, let's see. Um, but yeah, so I came to Bloomington as a junior and rode two little fives. And then, yeah, just I was hooked. I love the riding in Bloomington, and just kind of, the cycling is actually slightly more relevant than most places that you could potentially live.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I've stayed here ever since, and, been involved in some capacity since I graduated.
All right. And Jordan, anyone who's watched past Little Five videos on YouTube has heard the story of Zach Osterman tell how you came about. Tell me about how you got to IU. You weren't even interested in Little Five, I think, or really didn't know much about it. And then you stumbled on the Black Key Bulls.
Well, kind of the counter actually. So I definitely didn't know about the Black Key Bulls, but so I grew up in Northwest Indiana on Lake Michigan, and growing up, like my family was like really into the Indianapolis 500. So like we didn't go every year, but we probably went every other year or so.
Mhm.
And honestly, like I have this distinct memory blazed into my brain of it was like 7, 8, or 9 years old. I was at a sleepover at my cousin's house, and my aunt and uncle had like a movie night, and they put on the movie Breaking Away, and so that was like, a moment in time, like being introduced to this like wacky bicycle race, and from an athletic perspective, was pretty horrible at all ball sports growing up. Being near Lake Michigan, like I always knew how to swim, but I never, unlike my wife, who was like a pretty competitive swimmer growing up, and she like raced from age 30 through college. I got to high school and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like try this varsity swim team thing. And certainly by like all time standards was pretty horrible at it, but that was like my introduction to the endurance sports world where, if you like put in the time, you see improvement, which is like much better than basketball or whatever, where I don't have like the physical prowess to do that stuff. And so the summer after my freshman year of high school, I had been just like tooling around on this 30-pound used mountain bike as like a form of cross training for the swim season. And so I had been doing that for like a month. And in the town over from us, there was like a local YMCA sprint triathlon. And I figured, oh, I've got like 2 out of the 3 down, and how hard can running be? And so signed up for it and like loved it, and kind of did that during the summers in high school. And then senior year of high school, I remember coming down for the bike race with some friends and like watching that 2007 race in the stands. And again, being like a fan of the Indy 500, just amazed at how much of a combination that history and tradition and like pageantry coupled with like this unique little 500 thing was so cool to see. And at the time said, okay, well, I'm absolutely doing this when I come here next year. And so fast forward to the fall, had like gone out and ridden sort of solo and had met some people that way, Zach being one of them. And then it really wasn't until at the time they had like kind of a fall cycling series where they did it was like maybe 5-mile time trial up at Morgan Monroe State Park. And after like I got done, I heard this guy come up behind me and he said, "Hey, my name's Valentin Totoro and I ride for the Blackie Bulls. You know, we're like a pretty good team, and there's lots of other good teams out there, and you should really check them out. But you like come run some rides with us." And so that was like my introduction to BKB. And so that year, Renjay and I were like the rookies on the team and helped to provide some of that continuity going into the 08 season.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's great. And so tell me about how the team has changed from Ryan when you started, Jordan, you're in the middle maybe, or early third, and then to now. Like what's different or noticeably different about the Blackie Bulls?
Well, I'll just kind of start off as a beginning, at the beginning. Obviously that makes sense, but it just, the lens that I can view it through over these years is it's just so funny to see, because I have this unique perspective of seeing just how irrelevant, disorganized, unsupported, et cetera, it was at the beginning. To where it's become this, pretty well-oiled machine with alumni support and, race day responsibilities and, alumni that go on, a lot of times some recent graduates will go on Christmas or the Christmas break trip and train with the guys in Florida and stuff like that. And, it's pretty well, set of responsibilities getting delegated across the alumni base. And then it was just, we would go to Florida. We went to Florida on spring break, which is hilarious. Like if you care about Little Five, you're not going to Florida on spring break. And we just didn't ride our Little Five bikes very much and didn't really practice Little Five type stuff very often, and certainly didn't do like specific Little Five training. And now it's like, it's the exact opposite. And so, yeah, it's cool for me to see, because it's a Little 500 team. We're not trying to, sure, if somebody is interested in pursuing some other discipline or racing at a higher level, that's great. But yeah, the goal of the team is to have success at Little Five. And so it's much more suited for that now. But yeah, it was just this puny little thing that I think if you asked any of us in the beginning, it's like, we didn't realize the value in like creating this long-term thing that could, hold an expectation for the riders and kind of like set a standard back then. And, in retrospect, yeah, that's a great thing that we have achieved, as a program. But yeah, back then we were just, I think it was all very surface level. Like, this is cool. It's right in front of our face. Let's do it. And, we just liked riding bikes. And it was just another bike race for us to do. Isaac and I, both raced a lot of bikes in the following years. And I think it just it set the table for us in that regard, kind of getting us hooked on competition. But yeah, it was just nothing as a program back then. And I think that everybody's like, yeah, it's just this thing that we do. And we'll dust off our Little Five bikes again, like in March of next year. But now it's really cool to see what it's become.
But Ryan, you've been around long enough to see a lot of these teams come and go.
Yeah,
Right.
somebody
Not every team sticks.
Yeah. Like Chris Chartier, Dodds House.
Dodds House.
That was a very relevant team and race winning team kind of as we were getting onto the scene, and they don't exist anymore. And that's kind of wild to think. And I mean, I guess it's the fate that is hypothetically waiting for all of us if you don't, dot your I's and cross your T's and, your organization can kind of fall by the wayside. So yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said, a little pat on the back for everybody who's had a hand in making BKB this thing that, has been around for, 2 decades here and not that many more years.
Sure.
So yeah, it's cool to see. But yeah, I think, JB really had a hand in being involved and, kind of passing the torch after he was a rider. Obviously, he was race director for a little bit, but just, Jordan has ridiculous passion for the event that I think has been really good for it's kind of contagious with, throughout the alumni base. And so I think he's been, instrumental in kind of pulling the team upwards from his time as a rider and then, basically all the way till now as a race day coach. And so he's, I think he's very qualified to speak on, the kind of eras that the team has gone through.
Well, and honestly, like this last race, to like speak to your question directly, of course, like the winning part was cool and it was awesome and it was very fulfilling. But I do think equally as fun was, the last couple of years, the last, let's say 6 years or 8 years or whatever, the team has had the pre-race like tailgate, before the race. And I rolled up and was just like, my jaw dropped that there were 75 people of riders and alumni and family and friends and supporters. And it's just like, holy shit. And to Ryan's point, like, again, like in 2008, that was not much removed from like its infancy. And that did not exist, nearly 20 years ago. And to see what the organization has grown into over the last 18 years and to like see this like something from nothing was pretty special over the course of that 10 years.
Who organized that tailgate?
So I like when I had moved down to Atlanta, that was something I was like, yeah, that seems like something I can do now that like I'm disassociated on like the management side of the race. Like I really want to help like build that up. So started it, I think 2017 would have been the first year. And then
good year.
When I got the coaching promotion, I said, okay, this is we need to like pass this off to others. Like I can't be concerned with this on race day. So again, definitely a group effort of helping to delegate amongst people that care.
Jordan, tell me about being race director, going from rider to being responsible for the race.
Honestly, I've had conversations with Emily Carrico, the current race director, and again, like it's nice to wax poetic about the time as race director of like you get paid very little, you work like a shit ton of hours, and basically everybody that you come across like tells you how to do your job. But like I look back on it so fondly of, again, like you just have to care about the race and love the race, which I do. And again, I think that role gave me like a deeper appreciation for both Little 500, for Indiana University, for Bloomington, and I like, again, not to like downplay all of my other jobs that I've had since then, and they're all good jobs and important work, but like I look back on that role particularly, and again, like I still have learned the most life lessons of scenarios that you get put in, that I'll hold with me for the rest of my life. So again, just a really, really cool and just unusual kind of first job out of college experience where, I remember in the fall when I had started, I had breakfast with Kurt Simic, who had been a past rider for Dodds House in the 60s. He was a member of steering committee. He was the director of the Student Foundation, and then served as the president and CEO for about 20 years. And basically at the time, Kurt had told me, he's like, okay, here's the keys to this 60-year-old event. Don't screw it up. And so just like having that longevity and responsibility was just pretty cool.
Yeah. What do you think about the health of the event now? Like,
Again,
how's it doing in the big picture?
I think that like, and again, to kind of go back to the team element, like COVID obviously was like a pretty tough thing on like a very basic level of team and Little 500 and like the whole universe. But again, when you're reliant on like a live event like Little 500 and with something where it's really kind of that institutional knowledge that gets passed down both on like the management side for the student foundation, but then again on the team side as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have that for what was it, a year and a half, and then there weren't even like fans for that 2021 race, like it was tough. And again, I give like a tremendous amount of credit to Emily Carrico and Trent McGee in their like current leadership and stewardship of the organization and of the race. And again, like being able to like watch qualifications on YouTube, like that's a huge step forward. And again, something like if in like the student broadcast through the media school, like all of those things together and kind of the media, social media content that they've produced the last couple of years, it's in a healthy position. And again, like I trust their stewardship of the race. So.
Well, you brought up qualifications, so let's go back a year. You know, this is obviously it's a big story. A team like Blackie Bulls that doesn't qualify, and I talked to the writers, and they really praised the alumni for coming together last year after not qualifying, and just loving them, supporting them, showing up in great numbers for the race, and just giving these guys belief and support to continue on. Like that had to be a hard, month there from quals to Little 5.
I mean, I have a hand in this, so I guess I'll pipe up. Yeah, I mean, it was, it was kind of weird because I think every rider kind of processed it differently. And so some people needed their space, some people needed, more hands-on support and kind of everything in between. But yeah, I mean, that's where having, a big alumni base of, people that care to just, fill whatever hole it is the current team needs from an emotional support perspective. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's a pretty terrible situation that I wouldn't really want anybody to be in. I mean, just because it happens so quickly. It's like, okay, a third attempt is not a great spot to be in the first place. But then, there's just this kind of split second where you realize that like, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. You know what? It's done. It's dead. Like, there's no fourth attempt. There's no appeal. It's just like, it kind of feels like the world goes silent. And it just sucks for those guys and those seniors. Sure, everybody has 2 cents on what should have been different. And, it's a hard situation to execute in as a rider, because there's a lot of nerves and it's high pressure. And it's just that's why you would, in a perfect world, avoid that situation altogether. But, sometimes, bad stuff happens and you just got to kind of move forward. And I think these guys did a good job of kind of rallying. Yeah, it's a pretty terrible experience top to bottom because there's no fixing it. There's nothing you can say to undo it. You're going to have to either sit in the stands and watch the race or not watch the race at all or whatever. And it's kind of a testament to this current crop that they were able to kind of use it as motivation and have an axe to grind with the event over the next year, just to kind of prove that that's not the organization that we are, a team that is like a coin toss as to whether or not we get to participate. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty terrible. But yeah, the guys 10 out of 10, the way they bounced back. And honestly, JB was a huge component in that equation, just being, so hands-on with the guys and being able to be the rallying force behind this group. Because I think that's what the team needed. And like I said, this is kind of, in my opinion, where Jordan's passion for the event and, and also freshness for it too. Jordan comes in with a lot of motivation and, I think that he's been in a spot to be the coach for quite a few years now. And has been, there's no reason other than just, me being in there. I mean, he's been qualified forever.
Sure.
And so, yeah, his motivation for the event and passion for the event was instrumental in kind of righting the ship in that regard, just being the coach in the truest sense of the word. That's race day coach is just a tiny little sliver.
Right.
It's all the stuff that goes on for the 364 days before that makes a winning team. So
and again, like certainly a lot of credit to the guys, because they were the ones that had to buy in and see the bigger picture of doing the riding. And again, the riding on April 20th was hard, but it was stacking the days from September to October to November all the way through April. And then again, just even that April of last year of 2023 was kind of a decision point of, we can, pull up the team. And that was a good 17-year run, or kind of the opposite of what ended up happening. And again, I think it certainly reinvigorated the broader alumni base of, we can't just have this be on autopilot, and we need, and again, there's important, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to just the day-to-day stuff. But it's important to have those mentorship elements, the just positive vibes, I would say, to be supporting the guys and just checking in and being helpful where you can. And again, I would say across the board, everybody BKB wide did a really good job of that this year.
Yeah. What did this team do differently? What changed for this group to get them ready in training, honestly, or preparation or mindset?
I think it was I always go back to it. It was just a huge cultural shift of we graduated 2 guys, so Gavin and Daniel. And then Andy Jan ended up switching teams, and he ended up riding for Chi Alpha this year. And again, those are all good guys, and they were all helpful and had a hand in their time during BKB. But basically, Will ended up being the only remainder on that failing qualifying team. And then you had this ragtag group of guys that was headed and leaded by Jack. We've been on the team for a while, but we kind of started and were born in this wacky COVID era. And again, I think it was being together at the race in 2023 of them finally getting to see the why of, this is why we exist, and this is why we do this. And so again, and then throwing in the 3 really positive rookies of Wiley and Brady and Zach, where it was just kind of not a night and day shift, but a huge cultural shift. All of those guys were bought in, and they all saw the bigger picture, and they said, yeah, we're going to commit to each other. And again, Will, throughout the year, when it would come to talking about feelings time, he would say, this is the favorite team I've ever been on, and I just love and enjoy spending time with all of you guys. And again, if you're going to commit yourself to this wacky exercise of trying to win Little 500, you're going to be spending a lot of time in the saddle with all of these dudes, and it helps to like one another, and it helps to believe in one another and be able to work towards this common goal of winning the race.
Yeah. Well, how did winning this race come about? The guys talked about over winter break, they decided they wanted to attack the field at some point. And they said their coaches were agreeable to it. Tell me how that conversation went down, and how serious of a strategy was that?
I think it's funny. When you talk strategy of Little 500, it's a very straightforward race of, here are these 200 laps, and we're going to send our first guy out and he's going to ride for 10 to 15 minutes. And then that person's going to get 30 minutes to rest. And then you're going to kind of do that on repeat until you get to lap 200. And again, I've been around the race long enough, and obviously this was like the first time in the like coaches talks, but it's one where you can't just be like, oh, we're going to ride this from lap 1 to 15, and then we're going to do this from like lap 15 to lap 50. And you just kind of have to you have to take what the race gives you. And again, like certainly those guys had built up a fitness that they were good. And from a strategy perspective, like, at our very first dinner in September in the fall, like, I don't think things had changed very much, based off of like last year's race of, okay, the like top teams that we're going to monitor and like be aware of are going to be obviously Cutters is the defending champs, SIGEP, because they like threw out a crazy attack last year. Delts is always going to be up there, and SAE has come on really strong the last couple of years. And so that I would say that was like more of an emphasis of like, here are these teams, and we're just going to like read the race the best we can and like look for our opportunities to like throw the punches when we can. And again, like luckily like the script unfolded that we could do that. So
yeah, how like SAEs threw a big punch. And how was the pit doing over in Blackie Bull? How patient were you guys? What was that like? Because I know from the Cutter side, it got it got close. A yellow flag comes out, and you just never know.
I was feeling some like Hans Arneson, get a nice little break and finish off back in the field kind of situation.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah, we have a handful of alumni on the fence, and we were all kind of trying to communicate amongst ourselves and loop JB in, not bug him too much while he's working in the pit. But there was definitely some low to mid-level panic there was a point in the race where it had been a half lap for what seemed like 70 laps. And the group that SAE was in had grown, and they had some teams that were also working with them. And it was basically, it turned into a tug of war of, 3 to 4-ish teams in quote unquote the main field. And then they had 3 or 4 their group was kind of shrinking and swelling depending on exchanges. And I was like, all right, it's getting to the point where their group is nearly bigger than ours. And so if this continues to go that way and our group gets a little smaller, we might have to burn a few more matches to bring this back to a more manageable gap, because, they were proving that they were not going to, come back on their own. They rode unbelievably solid for, I don't know, what was that, an hour and 10 minutes or something that they were there effectively by themselves. So yeah, a little bit of panic, but also, you guys Cutters can speak to the composure it takes to not go all in and try to rectify that situation, and play your final card at lap 100. And so, yeah, I think it was kind of a balance of, all right, keep your composure. Let's see if we can kind of slowly chisel this back, instead of freaking out, putting one of our strongest riders on and having him try to take the gap from 2/3 of a lap to a quarter of a lap and, make us feel a little better.
Well, and it's interesting too, like, and again, I'm sure, Jim, you can probably speak to this pretty well, of like, outside of like SIGEP in 2023, and again, like, I think it's been common the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years, where, before that, at least on the new track, like it is not all that common to like throw that big of a punch and be away that long. Like 100 laps, in my experience, is just kind of unheard of. And again, kudos to those guys for holding that gap for as long as they did. But just like, yeah, kind of a crazy, not all that common thing to be able to see in this year's race.
Ryan, I was going to ask you, being behind the fence gives you a different perspective, gives you a little more time to think and process. Like, that had to be helpful for you in some ways, to watch the race from a different view.
Yeah. And, you also don't need to have such a solid face on when you're on the fence. I can kind of panic with my friends there on the fence, and and it doesn't really impact the guys on the bike. Jordan has to keep it together and kind of maintain a presentable face to the guys, even if it is a situation we don't exactly love. But yeah, it was good. I liked it. And we have a good number of knowledgeable alums on the fence that I'm like, we can kind of talk through situations, and they maybe see things happening that I don't. And you just kind of, it's almost like a stream of consciousness amongst a handful of us there on the fence. But yeah, it was definitely interesting, but it feels a lot more. I mean, I don't know if you can ever say it's peaceful being pitted next to SAE, but it's a little more peaceful. You can kind of compose your thoughts a little bit more when you don't have to communicate with the rider on the bike, when they come back or come past, or, talk to the riders so much after their sets. But yeah, it's definitely a different perspective that I liked. And, I would like to think that's what I bring to the table these days, is just kind of a critical eye from a tactics perspective. And it's perfect for me because I have nothing else on my plate other than just watching the bike race and trying to think, analyze it correctly. And so it's ideal for me.
And again, especially during that 100 laps, Ryan and some of the other guys were super helpful. Of just honestly, it was the one that Ryan had mentioned kind of in the early 100s, where it was sort of like a 5v5, and it's like, okay, this is not a great developing situation. And then it was a little bit earlier on in that first attack where they had gone through the rotation one time, I think, and they had given it back to Luke. And I think there might have been a yellow flag even at some point, but he had gotten a lot closer to 27, 28, 29 seconds, and sort of on the same straightaway sort of a situation. And obviously that's concerning. So
yeah. Jordan, you watched the race from a rider, race director up in the tower. What was it like being on the track, being in that pit coach role?
Well, I joked leading into the race that since graduating as a rider, both as race director, and then ever since then, I did the broadcast a couple of times, and then ever since then, I've always been kind of an official or a volunteer judge in the press box, and that's the best race to watch. That's the best vantage point to watch the race, because you can just see everything. And then going down into the pit at track is quite possibly the worst place to watch the race.
Yeah.
So that was challenging. And again, leading into it, Ryan gave really good advice of okay, well, you'll be able to see pretty clearly through turn 1 and 2. You'll have some obstruction on the backstretch, and then basically that medical tent in the short shoot of 3 and 4, you just won't see anything. So. And again, I was hyping it up in my mind of this is going to suck and it's going to be horrible. But at the end of the day, it was not. So.
You adapted, yeah. All right, so SAE's off the front for over 100 laps. It comes back. I don't remember what lap that is, 145 or something, 150.
Yeah.
You guys have to be thinking this is perfect. We're back in the race. Our team's doing great. We're all fresh. We're all healthy. We didn't overdo it too much. Are you thinking when can we go? Are you looking for opportunities, or do you have a set lap in mind that you want to take off?
So it was interesting. Again, I had a good collab with Ryan and some of the other guys at the end of our second set. So one in the 100 and teens and 120s, and Ryan's it's going to take a while to bring these guys back, and it might be worth it to burn some matches. And so I have a distinct, you have to adjust your plan. Again, as we talked about before, what the race gives you have to kind of roll with it. And so we were in the rotation about to get ready for everybody's third set. And it worked out nicely that Wiley got on the bike roughly at 1:30ish. And so again, just doing kind of the quick math in my head, I went to those guys and I said, hey, okay, we're going to shorten this down, and we're going to do 10-ish laps each. And again, feel free to burn some of these matches to bring this back with the goal of, and at the time we switched Will and Jack. So Will was then in the third spot. And the goal was going to be, okay, we'll put Will on the bike. He'll be able to close and then basically be able to throw kind of a counter around 160. And Wiley, kudos to him as the freshman, basically went out there, knocked off 10 seconds pretty straight away. And then he gave it to Jack, and Jack just like absolutely buried himself and not only pulled it back, but then like took over the lead. And so here we are like sitting, 145-ish, 150. He was able to get the exchange off to Will. And that was like the very first time in the last hour and however plus minute that everybody finally breathed. And honestly, that set for Will was like pretty easy because, instead of clipping away at 38, 37, 39 second laps, they were like 42, 43, 44. And two things, like I give, again, Liz Lieberman for Theta, a lot of credit in the women's race. And again, the common saying is like, oftentimes the women's race has a tendency to like mirror the men's race and vice versa. Yeah. And again, having seen them the day prior, they basically launched their attack from 40 laps out. That like gave me and us the confidence of like green light. If you see it, go for it. And again, a lot of credit to our student coach, Zach Villarreal, who all of those guys that were on the bike, and then Zach as the student coach as a sophomore, like none of them have ever experienced it as racers. And so they watched just like as much race tape as they could. And again, from like a throwing a punch perspective, there's only like so many opportunities. And I do remember Zach was like, this could be one, this could be one. And, so we kind of like indicated that, or we threw that out to Will that again, he's got the green light if he sees something. And SIGAP exchanged, which then kind of was a flurry of other exchanges that he was able to stay out an extra lap and extend that basically through that first punch to give McGuire the opportunity to kind of go up the road a little bit.
And so you're basically just going all in from that point.
Well, so again, it was interesting. Like I think that from a fitness perspective and from like a mentality perspective, we were like ready to go. But again, give Luke Noss like an incredible amount of credit that he basically rode through the chase group and solo bridged up to us. And so again, that kind of changed the dynamic of the race again. So after McGuire had exchanged it, he gave it to Wiley. And again, in my experience, like, and this is going to sound like braggadocious for Wiley and like for BKB and stuff, but like in my memory, I can't think of a freshman rider that like rode such an impressive and impactful race that he did. Because obviously, like, he has the fitness and is good and talented, but just like his race smarts, especially came out during that set of him riding kind of toe to toe with Luke Noss and just kind of his ability to position himself and kind of know what to do without like a whole lot of instruction of like keep it hot, like work with this guy, but again, like make sure your positioning is good. And then finally at the end of that set, after like 10 laps, Luke Noss finally became, as the Rocky quote is, the Russian is cut and he's like somewhat mortal and human. So that was like a good indication for us.
So it looks like you quickly get a half lap lead, really, and there's not a lot of time left. The race is going away, and then suddenly there's mechanical, right? And it gave us hope. Like we see Wiley come by, the seat height's down, he's pedaling, his knees are hitting his chest, and like we had a glimmer of hope. It wasn't enough, of course, but that had to be really stressful. Like to have this moment so close and possibly taken.
Well, and again, like you just like never know what Little 500 is going to throw at you, and honestly, so Will got back on the bike at 180. he threw kind of a second punch that was a little bit more definitive. And again, he got like the straightaway. Wiley then extended that and got up to about half a lap. And again, going back to like Ryan and others in the pit, it's like, okay, so in an ideal world, let's finish this with Jack doing 5, and let's finish this with Will doing 5, and then that'll get us to 200. When Jack had brought the bike into Will, as what happens during like crowded exchanges, he honestly probably did the correct thing and like went towards the fence side of things to kind of get out of the way. But unfortunately, Will Pitts from SIGUP like also chose that same spot to like redirect his bike. And so basically just like smashed into Jack, and like Jack went down cold. I was like super concerned in the moment that, I was like, oh God, we're going to like call the ambulance to come, pick this kid up off the track. And luckily he got up, but he was basically donezo after that. And again, he also rode 55 or 60 laps or whatever and just had an impressive race. And so again, we went to McGuire for 4 laps, and from a like numbers perspective, McGuire was the 24th ITT rider, so relative to the other guys and relative to like the top riders, not doesn't stack up necessarily well. But he went out and he rode 4 laps and like kept the gap basically and rode even with the chase. So as he was out there doing that, Wiley brings in the bike. Our mechanic Gavin takes it across the field, and honestly, this is like the first time in probably ever that BKB has like done the strategy of all bike to bike exchanges. And so basically, Gavin had been like swapping out seat posts every single time, and so he yells over and he's like, "Okay, so the seat clamp, the threads are basically stripped out." And so, as he's turning the bolt, like it just keeps spinning and there's nothing to hold it up. And again, like we did basically, there were all these crazy options that we could have done that were better. And we chose probably the worst one in the moment. Our like backup bikes were all like prior year Schwinn's. And so like technically like the seat clamp posts for those weren't compatible. Gavin probably had enough time to like run over to neutral support to like grab one from there. Didn't think to do that. And again, after an entire race of doing all bike to bikes, I think everybody completely forgot, oh yeah, we could just like do a rider exchange in this circumstance. But again, he's like 4 laps, so we have like not that much time. And again, that probably would have worked out. It probably would have been fine. Instead, we choose the absolute worst decision. And again, give Wiley credit. That was one thing that we had really hammered home the last like month or so is as a team of all rookies that have never been in the race before, you have to go out and take it. And Wiley, after doing an impressive 5-lap set with 4 laps of rest, he raised his hand and said, "I'll do it. Give me the bike." And so he rode this like busted bike for 2 laps to be able to set Will up for the last 4 on a like dialed functioning bike. So
oh, how sweet it is.
It was our Ferrari F1 pit crew moment.
Like a 25-cent part loses the race.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
So Will goes out there, hits it hard. The race is coming back. It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, we noticed.
But Will has the strength, the fitness, the calmness to pace those last 4 laps perfectly. Because if he goes out too hard, because he mentioned every ITT he's ever done, he's kind of gone out too hard and really faded. So he paced it, wins the race. Black Key Bulls celebrating. So I want to know what redemption means, because you're captured on the post-race interview kind of with exuberance saying that. Like, what's bottled up in that?
again, like there was like a really funny meme that was going around of like they caught our pit and I was just going absolutely nuts of celebrating as soon as he crossed the line. And like the wild part was they came over, the broadcast crew came over and they were like there before, like as Will crossed the line, they were like in our pit. And so like we were trying to celebrate and stuff, and like they and again, like give them credit, like they were doing a good job, but basically I like blacked out during like didn't had no idea what I was saying. But from like a redemption perspective, again, I think it goes back to just the whole year of not qualifying for the race. And then those guys having the opportunity, and again, seeing them along the way of slowly gaining confidence throughout the year, being able to like stack that fitness of like hitting this consistency in terms of the work that they had to do over the 8-month period of the Little 500 season. And I like remember back, I drove down for quals because again, quals was like a very tense time for us because the year prior we weren't in the race. And again, not that like my presence is going to do anything, but just like trying to like keep nerves at like a calm level. And our mantra going into quals was like, okay, we just like want to get on the first time, clean exchanges, fast laps, get it done in one, and we're good. And they did that. They did just that. And like the emotion that they showed after qualifying, like it was unreal. Like you would have thought that they had won the race after quals this year. And again, like I remember taking them aside after that moment, after quals was over, and I said, hey, think about how happy you guys were like 30 minutes ago. And if you guys can put together a race performance, winning Little 500 is going to be 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times that feeling. And again, they were able to just like ride the gutsiest, smartest, coolest, awesomest race, and were able to do it. It worked out. And that ended up being true. And in a way, like, that's always the goal of like, let's win Little 500. And they certainly bought in this year. But until you win it, like, it's hard. And again, like BKB has been a little bit removed and you go through COVID and just like, again, that kind of that cultural shift happens. And I do think that there was like a flip that switched after they won that is like, oh, like we can do this and we're off. Like in like, I think that's setting up BKB on a really positive path forward for hopefully next year and years after. So.
That's great. The third victory for Black Bulls. I'm sure a lot of alumni were there celebrating. Good vibes all around. How'd the rest of the night go?
It was good. Again, being like as nerdy as and like into Little 500 as you can get, we went back to the tailgate for a little bit, and then we just had an Airbnb and like celebrated amongst the team and in true like nerdy Little 500 fashion. Rewatched like the last 40 laps of the race, and then did a proper nice celebration over it. So
it's great. It is such a unique event. It's a nerdy event, and yes, it's not the Tour de France or the Olympics, but it's pretty damn cool, and it brings a lot of people together.
I go back to it like you can't just like pick this. If you were to like hand over all of the schematics and manuals of how to operate and how to run Little 500 and how it all works from like a management perspective, and if you gave it to some other Big Ten university and said, here, do this at like University of Michigan, like it just wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. And again, some of that is like the magic of Little 500, and that's what keeps us here talking about it for an hour, 2 weeks after the race. That's what keeps us like engaged as alumni, and there's just like this history and magical realism that comes back that keeps you invested.
Yeah. One other question, like if there's a new team coming around Little 5, like what advice would you give them for this longevity you guys have found now?
Don't let your alumni fade into the abyss post graduation. I think that's I mean, you guys obviously know as cutters, you guys have a huge base of involvement. But yeah, I think that's really what has created this snowball rolling down the hill, is just keeping the relationships between the young guys and the current riders and the less young guys active, and giving opportunities for them to communicate and, see each other and give each other a hard time and like kind of create that bond. And then, that kind of creates a vested interest in all aspects of the program. And so it's just, I think it's easy when a team is small to just not really see that. It's just like, well, my 4 years or 2 years or however many years you get with the program are done. And then it's like, well, I guess I'll move on with the rest of my life. But just kind of keeping those relationships, so, active is, I think, what has been so good for our program. So that would be my 2 cents.
Right, Ryan, I would also give you a lot of credit for staying local, staying with the team, putting all the time you have in over the years.
Yeah, I mean,
you've been a huge influence in Little Five.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I've definitely, I've had my seasons of involvement in BKB. I think when I first got out, I was less involved, just because, I think that some of the riders from that era, this is a point of contention. But, I just felt like, there were enough cooks in the kitchen already. And I think, when there isn't this precedent of alumni involvement, you kind of have to think fairly highly of yourself to keep hanging around and giving everybody your 2 cents. And so, yeah, I have been, obviously been around the event a lot. But I think, being involved this last handful of years as the race day coach has definitely been a nice thing to help, me kind of better my relationship with some of the guys that are kind of in the middle ground that, were there when I wasn't coaching the team. And I was just kind of a guy who rode for BKB, but was off doing his thing, bike racing. But yeah, I mean, it's been a super rewarding thing for me. And this year was really cool just to see it from another avenue, another perspective, because, it felt the same from a reward perspective. This year, I didn't have the hours and time commitment that I would normally as a race day coach for either Theta or BKB. So there's a little bit of a chasm there as far as the relationship with the riders on the day-to-day. But just, the reward for me has always been seeing the experience, and like, you can have a great experience racing Little Five and just participating, for sure. And it doesn't mean you have to win to have that life-changing experience. But I can tell you, the people who get to experience that race day win, it is certainly an additional level of awesome experience. And it's just cool to see when the guys or the girls, finally get their hands on that thing that they've been working for, this like mythical beast that they've been told that they can, wrangle. And so that's always what's fun for me, is just to see these kids lose their damn minds when they finally get to win, because, especially with Theta, where there've been a ton of wins and there are probably more people with rings than without rings in the last, 10 plus years. It gets built up a lot. And so I'm hoping that, that can be the kind of direction for BKB, where you kind of like Jordan said earlier, the guys see that this is really possible, and that becomes what you're actually after. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. There are a ton of amazing Little Fivers that, weren't able to put it together during their tenure as active riders. But it's just the mentality of going and working towards it. And then, yeah, if you do pull it off and win, then that's just the icing on the cake. But it's just really cool to see these kids get what they're, what they've been told that is technically possible. Because I don't think there's really anything that can prepare you for the feeling of like, holy shit, we pulled it off, and like nobody can take it away from us. And so, yeah, it's just the look in everybody's eyes, and the, probably annoying swagger that comes with a Little 500 victory for them is, it's really valuable and something that they're going to hold on to forever. And I think that, probably for better, for worse, is going to be very difficult to replicate in other aspects of their life. That, graduating as a senior, coming just off a victory at Little Five, and then going into the real world workforce, you're going to be stark contrast, to say the least. But yeah, it's very rewarding to see these, see it pay off, because there's a lot of hard work and a lot of not fun stuff that goes into it. A lot of puking in some dingy basement, doing terrible intervals for this alleged victory that may or may not come. So it's cool to see every once in a while when they're like, wow, you weren't lying to us that this is possible.
Well, I want to thank you both and everyone who supported the Blackie Bulls for just being good stewards of the event, winning with humility, and this, bringing people together and making Little Five a competitive event for everybody to strive for. So thank you guys for being a part of this cool event. I appreciate it.
Of course, Jim. Thanks for acknowledging us and having us on and giving us a platform to kind of tell our story. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, and look forward to seeing you both. Certainly next spring. And Ryan, I'll see you soon.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
sure.
see you before then, I'm sure.
All right. All right. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed listening to everyone's perspective, hearing the stories of how the teams came together. And it's always great to hear some insights from champions of Little 500. Hope you enjoyed it. There's more to come. Thank you.